need to know what's going on in the world, to the need to know what's going on in your business has never been greater. Really what's been amped up during these last 2+ years is just the speed to insight needs to be what we call it, the speed of thought or at business. Again, for all those variables we were talking about, we're really operating in this world of very high VUCA. And VUCA is a military term that means volatility, uncertainty, complexity, and ambiguity. And I really hope we never see a level of higher VUCA than where we are today. It's just the level of uncertainty has just been incredible. So very high levels of uncertainty, challenges for many different reasons. We're talking about the pandemic, but part of it is all of a sudden, it wasn't a hypothetical. We said, hey, can we run the world economy from home? And we have. So obviously we've learned a lot about ourselves, the organization, our culture, the processes, what it'll look like going forward. But if we think about the speed that people need to understand what's happening, because again, these changes are coming along so fast. One of my favorite quotes that someone told me was the CEO of a Fortune 100 company was saying, my aspiration is for my company, my finance team, to be able to react to any change in the business within 90 seconds, which obviously would be a very difficult thing to do. So it's aspirational, but she based it on the fact that that's how the stock market works, right? When something comes out about your business or something comes out about the environment that you're in, nobody says, I'll make a trade in a week or next month, right? It's like, how do you react to it immediately? And that's what organizations have been forced to, at least from an aspirational standpoint, try to be. So the cadence of everything has just increased, right? We want to get access to our data faster. We want to do our analysis faster. We want to provide insights to the business faster. And then the organization itself wants to make better, faster, smarter decisions. So it's really changed and challenged, just our whole concept of kind of really the 4 pillars from, I think this is business in general, but FP&A specific, is our people, our processes, the technology, and the culture. And one of the things that's really been highlighted is the fact that people talk about how important data is, and I kind of, when I have meetings or do roundtables or speaking publicly, it's one of the questions I like to ask is, data is the new what to you, right? Blank. And so people will talk about it's the new oil, it's the new gold. People have said it's the new superpower. My personal favorite is it's the new bacon, right? Because everyone loves bacon. My answer is, I think data is the new water, in the sense that it needs to be clean, it needs to be accessible, and it's necessary for survival. Financial reporting for regulatory purposes does not help the business run itself better, right? It's a requirement to do business. So, to really help the organization, and I live by analogy, is if you think about being on a ship. Okay. In the old world, if we're looking backwards, right? So you're on the stern and you're looking at the wake and you're trying to say, well, looking backwards, I'll tell you where we're heading, right? Because that's what financial reporting is. If what we really want to do is be up on the bridge, on the stern, and looking forward and at the horizon and looking at opportunities, but also, where potential risks are. So what the business wants finance to do, and it's really kind of been a big change of late I've seen, and again, I think everything's just been accelerated, during the pandemic, is we talked a lot about POCs, right? Proof of concept. And let me show you why this makes sense. And what the business comes back is, let's say what's me. So Brian, that's a great idea. It looks fantastic, but does it have any value? So I've really moved from saying what you're interested in is no longer POCs, it's POV, proof of value. And so that's how it for the organizations. And then the other thing that's really important is understanding what the organization wants. So again, if we're keeping in the context of analytics that we can provide to the organization, there has to be a consumer of those analytics. So it can't just, like I said, we know from financial reporting, which I would say again is descriptive and diagnostic. There's an appetite for that because it's a requirement. Once you start getting into predictive, prescriptive, and then ultimately cognitive, just because we can do it doesn't mean the company wants to do it. And so the three big questions, and again, this is what's really important. You can't live in these silos anymore. You will be, especially in FP&A, you'll be an absolute failure if you want to sit in your office all day. Back in the day when we had offices and we weren't all just at home, sitting in your office and running reports. That there's just no value add there. So it's really, understand what the company wants. So I'm a believer that because of all the technology advances that we've had, is we now can answer every business question, but the organization has to ask three questions of itself, which is, first one is, do we want to ask the question? So do we actually want to do predictive analytics? Do we want to get into prescriptive? And it's kind of like the classic flow chart, right? So if it's no, we stop. If it's yes, it's like, okay, then we're going to move to our next question. So we want to do this. Then the question is, do we have the resources to get it, from capacity, from people, from process, from the money spent on technology? And again, if it's no, we stop. And if it's yes, then we have to ask the third question, which is incredibly important. Is the ROI going to be high enough to justify the spend? Right? So just because we can find things out, will it make economic sense for us to do so? And so that's what we're always trying to do, is figuring out how can we leverage what finance is good at to help the business make better, smarter, faster decisions. So when I was hiring for my FP&A team, say 20 years ago, what I really wanted was someone who knew accounting and was a Jedi master at Excel. Okay. That skill set is not the skill set that we need for today or tomorrow. And so again, as I try to keep things as simple as possible, so people say, okay, Brian, what makes a good FP&A professional? What are you looking for? And so the way that I describe it is, I want a quant, right? So someone who understands finance and understands accounting, but tells great stories, right? I need a storyteller, communicator who completely understands my business. Okay. And so what I would encourage people is, yes, it's important to have the blocking and tackling of finance and accounting. Yes, your life will be a lot easier if you can, if you can read a balance sheet and understand, a general ledger. Those are important, but those are table stakes. That's just stuff everyone just kind of assumes that And part of it is even going back to something like the certification. That's something you can test, right? That's the next level of difficulty is communication, right? Is that how do I determine whether someone's a good communicator? Again, part of it is understanding your audience. So the term I kind of use is you have to be a good either teacher. So maybe that kind of helps me because I teach, but you also have to be a comedian, in the sense that you need to be able to understand your audience, right? Because the way people consume information is very different. So again, the onus is on your ability to tell that story. There are tools that are out there that helps. I mean, something that I'm passionate about is this concept of international business communication standards. It's just that the way we present information, not the information itself, should be standardized, right? I mean, it's the idea of, there needs to be grammar in the way that we present information, so it's not always a brand new story every time we see it. And again, it's understanding, again, not that the analysis isn't important. Obviously, it's critically important. But the ability to share that with someone is just as important. So the term I use is that it's like, if you do the greatest, or I always like putting myself on the spot. So if I do the greatest analysis of all time, but write the report in Dutch and nobody speaks or reads Dutch, it doesn't matter that it's fantastic analysis. It's not helping the business because they don't understand it. So it's the same thing as if you just drop a whole bunch of spreadsheets in front of someone and say, because we're finance people, I believe math is a language, numbers are a language. So I can look at a spreadsheet and go, oh, good, bad, I can just look at the numbers. But and again, not knocking anyone, but if you show that to HR, you show that to marketing, that's not the story they need. And maybe it's a narrative they need. Maybe they're much more visual. So you have to understand how the communications works and how people consume.